Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to discuss about how to deal with negative signs in algebraic expressions. From the subtraction of these numbers here from these minuends, we can see that when you're subtracting a positive number, that actually means adding the opposite of that positive number, like negative 5 minus 4 means negative 5 plus the negative of 4. So applying this idea or concept in these algebraic expressions, then we can say that x minus 1 actually is equivalent to x plus the negative of 1. And 2x minus 1 is equivalent to 2x plus the negative of 1. This time we are going to use algebra tiles to show that x minus 1 is equivalent to x plus negative 1. Remember, we are using this particular tile to represent x, and then from x we want to subtract positive 1. However, we do not have positive 1, therefore we need to bring in 1 0 pair, a yellow tile and an orange tile together, because this is 0 and 0 plus x would just be x. Now with the zero pair, we can now take away the positive 1, which is the yellow tile, and what is left here is just this orange tile, which represents negative 1, and this is going to be x plus negative 1. So that shows that x minus 1 is equivalent to x plus negative 1. On to another example. We have here, we are going to subtract a negative number from a term with a variable x. So we go back to this numerical expressions where we are subtracting a negative number from another number. And remember, when you're subtracting a negative number from another number, you simply have to add the opposite of that negative number from the minuend. So that's why we have 5 minus negative 4, it is equivalent to 5 plus 4. Applying that over here to these algebraic expressions, then we see that x minus negative 1 will just be equivalent to x plus 1. And then 2x minus negative 3 will just be equivalent to 2x plus 3. And 3x minus negative 4 is 3x plus 4. How do we show that x minus negative 1 is equivalent to x plus 1 using algebra tiles? Let's start with this x rectangle representing x, and we need to take away negative 1, which since we do not have a tile representing negative 1, then we need to bring in a 0 pair, which is comprised of a yellow tile and an orange tile. So with this 0 pair, we now have a negative 1 tile, and we can take away that negative 1 this way, and what's left is just this x tile and this positive 1 tile, and this is x plus 1. So you have seen how we can prove that x minus negative 1 is equivalent to x plus 1 using algebraic tiles. The next situation that I'm going to show you is one that involves subtraction from 0, like 0 minus 3 and 0 minus negative 3. This is also something that some students might get confused, so let's take some time to go over this kind of situation. So 0 minus 3. 0, remember, this means nothing, and we take away 3. So how will that work? Let's start with 0 minus 3. And so we have 0 means nothing. And then how can we take away positive 3 from 0 when we don't have anything there? So this calls for bringing in 3 0 pairs, because we need 3 positive tiles. So that's 1. So now we have 3 0 pairs, and from these 3 0 pairs we have 3 positive taus. We take away this 3 positive taus. After taking away the 3 positive taus, we're left with just 3 negative taus, which represents negative 3. Therefore, 0 minus 3 is equal to negative 3. Then what about if you are subtracting negative 3 from 0? So again, we start with nothing, and we need to bring in 3 0 taus because we need 3 negative taus. There goes our 3 0 taus, and now that we have the 3 negative taus coming from the 3 0 taus, we can take away the 3 negative taus, and that leaves us with 3 positive taus, which represents positive 3. Therefore, we see that 0 minus negative 3 is just equal to positive 3. In this problem, we can see that the difference of 0 and a number is simply the opposite of the number subtracted from 0. In this problem here, we are subtracting 0 by the sum of x and 1. As you can see, x plus 1 is inside the parenthesis. So our subtrahend is this expression x plus 1. And we know that if we're subtracting a number from 0, our difference, our answer will just be simply the opposite of that expression or that number. And since our subtrahend is x plus 1, then our difference, our answer will be the opposite of the sum of x and 1, which is the negative of quantity x plus 1. Moving forward, we have 0 minus the quantity of x minus 1. Our subtrahend here is x minus 1. So our difference will be the opposite of quantity x minus 1, which is the negative of quantity x minus 1. Our x minus 1 remains as x minus 1. We just have a negative sign in front of x minus 1. Then we have 0 minus the quantity of negative x minus 1. Our subtrahend here is the expression negative x minus 1. Therefore, our difference is the negative of negative x minus 1, which is negative quantity negative x minus 1. We have to be careful with the negative signs because sometimes it will be confusing, especially when you already are dealing with so many negative signs. And lastly, we have 0 minus the sum of negative x and 1. Our subtrahend here is quantity negative x plus 1, and the opposite of quantity negative x plus 1 is simply negative quantity negative x plus 1. With so many terms in our expression, it's always good that we write them down and see what we are talking about. We'll now use the algebra tiles to find out what the negative of x plus 1 look like. So let's start with, because we have nothing here, remember it's 0 minus the quantity of x plus 1, so we start with nothing. And to come up with x plus 1, we need to bring in a 0 pair for that has x plus 1 and the opposite of x plus 1. This is the representation for x plus 1. Therefore, the 0 pair would look like this. This is the 0 pair for x, and then the 0 pair for the 1s. Okay, and now because of this 0 pair, we can take away x plus 1. We take away this green rectangle and this yellow rectangle, and leaves us with just this orange rectangle and this orange one, where orange rectangle represents negative x and this orange square represents positive, or rather, sorry, negative 1. So that's going to be negative x plus negative 1. Therefore, the negative of x plus 1 is negative x plus negative 1. Next, we have the negative of quantity x minus 1. We want to subtract x minus 1 from nothing. Therefore, we need to bring in a zero pair with the x's and a zero pair with the square tiles. So this green and orange rectangle represents the zero pair for the x's and the zero pair for the 1's. And so we now have a positive x and a negative 1. And we take away our x and the negative 1, and that leaves just negative x and positive 1. Therefore, the negative of x minus 1 is simply negative x plus positive 1. Next, we have the negative of quantity x minus 1. We want to subtract x minus 1 from nothing. Therefore, we need to bring in a zero pair with the x's and a zero pair with the square tiles. So this green and orange rectangle represents the zero pair for the x's and the zero pair for the 1's. And so we now have a positive x and a negative 1. And we take away our x and the negative 1, and that leaves just negative x and positive 1. Therefore, the negative of x minus 1 is simply negative x plus positive 1. We have this problem. We have the negative of quantity negative x minus 1 is equal to what? So we have to bring in a zero pair wherein you have negative x and negative 1 in that orange row, and then the corresponding opposite on the second row. Then we have to take away the negative x minus 1, which means we take away this orange rectangle and this orange square, and that leaves the green rectangle and the yellow square, which represent positive x plus 1. And then lastly, we have the negative of negative x plus 1. We have here a zero pair because we started with nothing, so we need to bring in a zero pair with the x and the 1's. This first row represents negative x plus 1, and the second row represents the opposite of the first row. We have positive x and negative 1. Now let's take away negative x and then take away positive 1, and that leaves the green, which represents positive x, and the orange square that represents negative 1. Therefore, the negative of negative x plus 1 is positive x plus negative 1. So to summarize what we just have done, we can see that whenever a term is preceded by a negative sign, the sign of the term after the negative sign will change to its opposite. Just like when you're subtracting negative 1 from x, the negative 1 becomes positive, and of course that will be changed to addition. Then we have here 0 minus 3. The 3 is positive, that's subtracted from 0. It is equal to negative 3, and the negative 3 that is subtracted from 0 now becomes positive 3. Likewise, when you have these expressions which are preceded by a negative sign, we have every term inside the parenthesis, their corresponding signs have been changed. The positive here becomes negative, and the negative becomes positive. Like positive, the negative of quantity x plus 1, x now becomes negative x, and positive 1 becomes negative 1. And then when you have the negative of negative x minus 1, the negative x becomes positive x, and the negative 1 becomes positive 1. So I hope I have explained to you and you have learned something from this presentation on how to deal with negative signs in algebra expressions. Watch for more videos that I will be presenting, especially videos on multiplication of expressions and as well as subtraction of expressions. Thank you so much and have a good day.